yeah, as how we might format, or is there any other ways that we can format the development of this group? And I'm aware, Harmon, of your comment about not wanting to be in a teacher role, so I've left you alone. But but I'm just thinking, just is there a because after I put all those notes together, I thought, as usual, it's way too much information, or for some people anyway. And I'm thinking, is there a better way that we can have an introductory beginning to the class that all people can benefit from? And if we haven't got answers now, we can mull it over and maybe just either put it on the group or email me.
Paul?
Yeah.
Maybe we could just start at the beginning. What's the purpose of this group?
Well, I'll answer for me. My purpose is to learn more about trigrams, I Ching, and because I work in Chinese medicine particularly, I'm interested in the use of that in medicine as well. And just working, mainly by myself with this kind of thing. There's, you look at one thing and you come up with 100 answers. And for me, apart from researching hours and hours on the internet, I haven't found a particular easy way to go about that. So I thought, well, there must be other people out there that enjoy this as well. Let's start a group and start sharing information.
Yeah. Okay. So it's mainly focused on trigrams as far as you're concerned.
Well, trigrams kind of expand outwards, don't they? And I really like the core of the 8 trigrams, and then they kind of encompass most things from what I can see anyway. So no, I'm not restricted to just trigrams, but I guess as a common core, that would be useful language to use.
Okay. I wonder why all the other people, Jewel, Mark, Keith, why did you join this group?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Paul. I'm an acupuncturist as well, and I found trigrams were not the easiest things to research online, and I wanted to know more about them. I wanted to dive into them a little bit, just to get more familiar with them, get used to using them every day, and just become more fluent with them, really.
But are you also interested in the connection with Chinese medicine?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
That's me.
That leaves 2.
I'm curious. I'm curious, and I use it for divination, and what I read into that and the information that it gives me has been very helpful to me. So I'm curious.
That leaves me. I mean, I'm here to learn. I don't have much to offer because I don't have a background in traditional Chinese medicine, but I do, and I have had a successful career with energy medicine and the concept of energy medicine and healing, and just really want to expand my understanding. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever be able to use trigrams in the way that I approach people, but I want to learn the philosophy behind it, the I Ching and all the concepts of energy medicine according to traditional Chinese medicine. I mean, for example, I have a lot of knowledge of materia medica, like herbal law and medicine, and I've taught it for years, and other sort of energy healing practices. So, and of course, I've known Paul for decades, so it was an opportunity to hook up with him, and I've been stuck with it ever since. I really enjoy it. I sometimes talk too much as well.
Thank you, Mark.
Nice to meet you, Herman. I'd like to hear about you, actually, if that's okay.
About me?
Mhm.
Well, I'm not sure. I can't really remember how I joined this group. It probably had to do with the name, Trigrams, because trigrams are a fascination of me. I noticed many years ago that when people use the I Ching, they mainly focus on the text of the book. They throw the coins, get a hexagram, and they immediately open the book. Paul, I see you have Alfred Huang in the back.
Yeah.
And many people, they immediately open the book and start reading from the first letter to the last. And that's the only way they know with the I Ching practice. Most people don't know that the hexagram and the trigrams are actually one of the oldest layers of the Jiaoyi. And when you look at the oldest examples of I Ching usage, you see that almost always there is at least a reference being made to the trigrams in the interpretation. So people didn't only read the text of the Jiaoyi, they also worked with the trigrams. And that is something that we hardly do here in the West. And that is something that I found interesting. I understand why people don't use trigrams, because they learned the Confucian way of using the I Ching. And the Confucian way of I Ching practice focuses on the text, whereas using the trigrams and the hexagrams and all the systems and layers that come with it is more or less a Taoist practice. And many people learned the I Ching through the work of Richard Wilhelm, James Legge, etc. And they had this Confucian approach. So I can understand that many people use the I Ching by only reading the text, but I also think they are really missing a lot of information when they're only focusing on the text. So when I noticed that, I started to study the trigrams and their usage in ancient China, and that mainly focuses on the history of the Jiaoyi. And it's the earliest usage of the Jiaoyi, and that's what I find really interesting. Oldest examples, all these excavated documents that we have at our disposal. I find these really interesting. You have the Shifa manuscript, the Tsinghua Shifa manuscript, which I find a really fascinating manuscript, and it shows that in the earliest usage of hexagram divination, trigrams were really important. And if you look at the Guojian Zhaoyi written on bamboo, you see that the hexagrams are explicitly divided into trigrams. Well, the author wouldn't do that if that didn't have any meaning. So the trigrams had meaning, and most people don't know the value of the trigrams in I Ching divination. So that is why I made it one of my most important topics in my own I Ching research.
Have you and Paul known each other for long, or did you just meet through
We
this?
just met.
Yeah.
Where?
Cool.
Yeah.
Hi, Paul.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question, Mark?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Well, we could. Do you want to start with that information that I prepared? Not all of it, but some of it, just as a to get us going on a subject, and then maybe each of us can bring in what, our particular area of expertise, you could say. So I know that, I'm not sure if you know this one, Mark. Do you know this cycle?
Well, I'll be able to answer as you start talking about it.
Well, if we just look at it really simply, you could say down here is, for simplicity, is midnight. And you see we've got 1 yang line underneath 5 yin lines. And then as it progresses up this side, you can see that the yang lines slowly increase until we reach six yang lines here. And then the yin comes in on the bottom and slowly increases again till it comes back to the 6 yin lines. So they call this the tidal hexagram system. And this can pertain to also December and January, February, March, April, May, all the way around. And then it's also 11 p.m. till 1 a.m. kind of 1 to 3. So it's a daily cycle as well, you could say. And at the moment we're in this time period here, which is governed, or you could say resonates to this hexagram, which is called great strength in the northern hemisphere, and then in the southern hemisphere we're opposite here with this hexagram called approaching. And you can see also that these 2 hexagrams are actually opposite each other. So we've got 4 yang, 2 yin, and then 4 yin, 2 yang. And another thing that is really interesting in my thoughts quite a lot recently is if we look at this as the world basically. So northern hemisphere, the north is cold, and in the southern hemisphere the south is cold. So we could put from the southern hemisphere, if we look to the sunshine, the sunny north, and you look to the, well, you wouldn't go, you probably have to go a bit further south in England. You probably have to go to some of the more warmer areas of the northern hemisphere. And then we've got this interesting cycle. If we look at this picture of a person looking toward the south in the northern hemisphere, or a person looking toward the north, we have the sun rising on the right side in the south, and the sun rising on the left side in the north, and it seems to create this nice sort of figure of 8 pattern. Well, this is the way I relate to it anyway. So basically as the sun comes up to midday, or the yang increasing comes to midday, and then the yin increasing comes back through the west side, back to the beginning of the circle again. And this figure of 8 image in the center kind of, it gives me a quite a strong feeling that they work hard. Well, they're one unit, and this is what I've been experimenting with, is the use of the opposites. And also, Keith, if we look at this, the preceding month, which was lung and urinary bladder, then we've got the metal over water global balance. And then if we go to the next month, we've got kidney, pericardium, stomach, large intestine. So we've got the magic 4 in this combination. So it's also on an acupuncture perspective. I'm kind of interested what value we can find of using opposites to create global balances in relation to the tidal time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, please.
Oh, as you know, I have absolutely no background in the practice of this healing, but it absolutely means everything. You know, you talk about this model that we're looking at here, and one of the things that I understand is the principle of vitality and provings. And, you know, a proving is just how any substance releases its kind of inner energy and manifests material changes in people. And when you understand a proving and that collection of changes that occurs, and see it in an energetic way and apply it to somebody with the same or a similar quality of energy and pathology, they get better. this is similar, it's not opposites.
Yeah.
However, in the provings, the most revealing things that come out of the provings are times of the day, season variations, lunar cycles. All of the provings show specific pathology relating to time, date, areas of the body, like you have on this diagram here.
Yeah, okay.
And you know, even the other diagram that you showed,
yeah,
was a model of the world. That's exactly what it looks like for real. And they didn't know that at that time. They didn't have the ability to see it from space like we can now, but that's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What you're sorry for.
It just makes sense, that's all. You know,
Right, Mark.
ultimately it is an energetic process. Healing must be an energetic process. It can't be a material process. So it's what affords that change. It's what allows the change to occur in an individual.
Yeah.
Whichever approach you use.
Yeah.
That must be objective.
I mean, again, on the medicine side of things, this time period here, as we move into spring, often is a aggravation of this of the conditions that's related to the west side of the circle. So as the sun's coming, or the energetic of heaven, you could say, is coming back into Earth, the body has to stop expanding outwards and start contracting, condensing, to receive the nourishment, you could say, of the rain, to come back in and nourish the earth, so that there's future growth. So often anything to do with stomach and intestines often is, or it can be seen as aggravation, like hay fever. Well, that's a little bit later, but in Chinese they have what they call spring diarrhea, which is spring comes along and you get diarrhea, and you actually clean out and release all that you've stored over autumn and winter gets released. So again, the organ of the large intestine in particular, and the stomach are related to the western side in the Chinese system, which is interesting why their meridians are actually located in the east. So, as you like trigrams in Harmon, how would you relate? Can you look at a static hexagram without any moving lines in relation to this aspect that we're talking about?
Sorry, Paul, what is your question?
Yeah, well, that's a good. I'm not quite sure. I'm just well, I'm just thinking that, because you said about the importance of trigrams, that we've got thunder over heaven, and also related to the growing energy in spring. But when there's no moving lines in that hexagram, how do we use the trigrams in that association if there's nothing moving?
Oh, well, I wonder why you say that there isn't anything moving, because in this specific circle, there's a lot of movement.
There is, yeah, true.
So even though it isn't explicitly mentioned, you can say that in the left hexagram, you could say that the fifth line is moving, and thereby generating the next hexagram in the cycle.
Yeah, okay.
So, and the same goes for the next hexagram with the ST. I'm not familiar with all these.
Oh yeah, so yeah, that's stomach.
That stomach, that hexagram would have the sixth line moving. So even though it isn't really mentioned, the same, by the way, could be done, which is more or less a different topic, with the Houthi and Bakwa trigram circle, because it shows more or less the same kind of principle. I think you have it below this.
I've got it. Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. And you in the red. Oh wait, you have it twice.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
So you could say that in the east, trigram thunder is a completely moving trigram, which is generating trigram wind. So because these aren't, it's not a mechanical clock with the hour end just swapping from trigram to trigram. It's flowing to the other trigram. And I think that is how you could see moving lines in these trigrams in the Gautian Bagua trigram circle, but also in these hexagrams. So nevertheless, if you want to look at a hexagram as a static hexagram, well, you can look at the trigrams as an inner trigram and an outer trigram and work from there.
Yeah.
And that can relate to, well, in your case, if you're a doctor, you could be the lower trigram and your client can be the upper trigram. If you see the hexagram as a representation of your client condition, then the lower trigram is the inner world and the upper trigram is the outer world and how he or she experiences that world. So something like that, I think.
Okay.
And that, I think that is also how you can look at these hexagrams, considering that this hexagram 34, I think, is on the left, that you have trigram heaven on the inside, which is this idea of creativity and intention and concept, but it hasn't really realized anything yet. Whereas the upper trigram is thunder, which is a radical, sudden new beginning.
Yeah.
So something like that, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because in the branches theory, the large intestine is, or that you could say, starting down here, it's an awareness, or even starting down here, it's the seed, you could say, and then awareness of one space, how we greet the world, and then how we use that energy to create, or to further develop this original intention.
Yeah, and that what is interesting about these kind of cycles is that I think you have to keep in mind that what is more important than the qualities of each hexagram itself is the relationship between these hexagrams. And in cycles like these, one hexagram, I think, generates the other hexagram.
Yeah.
And that, of course, in this case, from medical point of view, that has interesting implications.
It does.
Because now you have this hexagram 11 with LU. What is LU?
Lung.
Oh, lung, that is generating the next hexagram and that organ system.
Well,
what does that say about any possible treatment? I wonder.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you can imagine what shortness of breath might do to the large intestine.
Ah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
But what I am, from my point of view, struggling with is this connection between these, the Wu Sheng, the 5 elements, and these hexagrams, because that completely clashes with what I know about the 5 elements connected to hexagrams. And I, for instance, I see hexagram 1 with SP.
Explain.
And okay, and that is at the region of fire. And I think, no, that's not possible because hexagram 1 is metal.
Metal, yeah.
So that is what I think. Well, how are you going to reconcile these differences? I mean, from a calendar perspective, it definitely makes sense. But when you but from when you combine these two, there's something happening where I think, wait, how are you going to deal with this? How can hexagram 1 be fire? Or am I not supposed to look at it that way, I wonder? So,
well, you're definitely supposed to look at it. That's a very good question. And who'd like to answer that?
Can you tell me what the problem is?
Well, it's not really
go.
it's not really a problem, but you know, in these old documents like the Shifa manuscript and in the practice of Wen Wang Kwa divination of the I Ching, each trigram and also the 8 Chunqua, these hexagrams which are built of twice the same trigram, they are connected to the 5 elements. And trigram heaven has element metal. And well, trigram earth has element earth, of course, and trigram thunder has element wood. So that also means that hexagram 1, being twice trigram heaven, has element metal. And hexagram 2, twice trigram earth, has element earth. Now here I see hexagram 1 in the region of fire, and I see hexagram 2 in the region of water. And that is creating a shortcut in my brain.
Yeah.
So, and that's not really a problem, but how are you going to use this? How should I see hexagram 2, for instance, as a water hexagram? According to this chart,
Yep.
I can do that, but what are the implications, I wonder? And
yeah, okay.
So there's a clash here with what I know of these trigrams connected to elements and this chart. And maybe this chart is trying to reconcile 2 systems which are never meant to be reconciled. It's possible. I don't know.
Well, that it's always possible. And in times when you haven't got an answer, it's good just to keep going. So I'm just for Mark's benefit. So the normal how could we do that? So if we just do so based on the fact that the 2 lower lines here are yang, this is related to metal, and then we could go, and then we got fire. Wood. So this is what Harman's talking about, is the relation of the trigrams to the different elements, the 5 elements. The system with the 12 tidal, or you could say the flow of energy through the meridian system. So we got I'll do that. So it's kind of like, for me, it's a fairly, like the Sanjiet, this is called the triple warmer. So the triple warmer is controlled by the kidney. So kidney relates to water. And then the gallbladder is also beneficial according to that cycle there is based on stems and branches. In fact, probably I cannot answer that clearly, that why it's there. I've just accepted the fact that that's the cycle. and they relate to those areas. And then from there, I'm trying to work out why is that? For
What I
example,
want to ask is, why can't you have opposites?
well, it's sometimes there are systems that work independently, you could say, and it's confusing if you join them together. In this
Cycle, isn't it a cycle? There's a point where it starts and then it returns back to that, and in that cycle it has to complete a whole. So you're going to have identicals and complete opposites at different points of that cycle. I can't understand why it can't be there.
Well, it is there, so it's not that it can't be there, it is there. So I guess we've got to work out why it's there in that particular pattern. And if we look at, this is describing, well, if we look at the water cycle again, that's relatively well understood. So we could say that this here is all water. So it's all yin, and water is the element that's most associated to yin energy. And in this state, there's no movement in it at all. So when you apply fire to it, then you start to generate some movement in the water, and usually that water movement eventually is an evaporation process, a steaming process. It elevates. So we could say that the yang energy here is actually representing the movement of blood with fire contained within it.
Where does the fire come from?
Well, it comes, you could say from heaven for a start, so it comes through the breath.
From the heart?
Well, it definitely, the fire is connected to heart, yeah. You could say the heart's the vertical axis of the heart, and the kidney are usually seen in the vertical axis. The heart, you could say, is the distributor, or the force that distributes that fire around the body. But that fire has to be in a container which is related to the water element. So if we look at the hexagram of water, so we have the two yin lines with the yang in the center. So this is said to be the fire within the water. And if you look at the Hotien, is that how you pronounce it, Harman? Hotien Bagua?
Hotien.
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 So if we look at that one, which is this shape here, the all yang lines is down here in the northwest, and it's the next one in progression is the water, and that's the fire from the heaven trigram being inserted into the yin energy of water, which then again stimulates new life, you could say, up this eastern side of the circle.
I know I'm probably being a bit dim here, but in reality, actual pathology, that there's an absolute direct link between heart and kidney. And what I mean by that is that the kidney is dependent on the heart. It's not the other way around. The kidneys depend on a healthy heart in order to function properly. When you get changes in the heart, you're going to get changes in the kidneys. It's a natural consequence of that.
It depends how you look at it, really. I mean, what would cause a problem in the heart? So if you're saying the heart's the precursor to kidney issues, then what would precipitate a problem with the heart as the originator?
Well, I mean, life, I guess, because I mean, I'm being quite crude to sort of expand on my understanding of the heart would just relate to problems with relationships generally, the anger is contained within the lungs. The heart is the thing that pumps the lifeblood around. So when it gets restricted or hindered in its ability to do that, the direct effect is on the kidneys, because the heart works harder and harder, and it forces it more and more through the kidneys, and they can't cope. So they give up, and the water stays within the body. That's what happens. They don't eliminate the water. They become fluid bound. And you see that with edema and things like that.
Yeah. So you could say that the edema is a classic pattern of the fire not penetrating water.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which is interesting with this, what we're looking at this month at the moment, the kidney hexagram here, is related to the western side of the cycle, which you could say is, this is specifically 5 to 7 p.m, but the actual whole, the three connected aspects of this circle go from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that is the integration and the condensation of the breath, or yang energy, you could say, coming back to Earth.
Paul,
Yeah.
just as an example, to get a little bit more focus on the hexagram.
Yeah.
How does hexagram 20 in this case, and everything that you know about that hexagram, how does that connect to the kidneys for you? Like, for instance, the name of hexagram 20 is Kwan, observing.
Yeah.
Does that have any relevance for you? Or maybe from the trigrams perspective, trigram earth and trigram wind?
Well, definitely trigram Kunz in the system of acupuncture I use is directly related to the kidney.
Okay. But do you also use meanings, qualities, and associations of these trigrams?
Yeah, yeah. So again, the kidney is the most yin of the organs, you could say, and yin is reception, and the quality of kun is also earth. So if the earth is dry and barren, for example, then whatever falls onto it gets washed off. There's no absorption. So if we look at those two yang lines on the top, is representative of the heart fire trying to circulate, and the kidneys are weak, then there's no reception of that. There's no absorption into the tissues of the blood, you could say, or of the fluid. The gentleness of Shun wind also, for some reason, reminds me of precipitation. It reminds me of rain. When I look at that hexagram, it kind of feels like it's raining. I'm not sure if there is an association to Shun wind, but that's what it feels like.
Well, traditionally, no, but that's not important.
No,
what is important is your own personal associations with these trigrams.
Yeah.
Are far more important than what the books tell about it.
And the other thing with approaching, and I've read Alfred's book, of course. So, but that's also the nature of the body is the strength of the physical body is connected to kidney in particular. So it holds the essence of the strength of the whole body. And if it is receptive, then the heart doesn't get restricted. There's no restriction on the expansion of heart. And that receptivity also requires a level of quiet, a level of patience, levels of trust, submission, receptivity, all the things that relate to the kun earth, I can particularly see relating to kidney. And just to further that, Mark, that because the water element and the kidney is, and these when we talk about kidney and heart, it's not actually the organ itself, it's the function of what that represents. So there's
yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
What I think, Paul, is that when these ideas were formed, these people were visionaries. They didn't have an ability to see fact. They experienced it through unconscious processes. But what I marvel at is just how accurate it is, and demonstrably accurate. So I think it's cool.
well, I was reading an article today about sorry, just go, Jules.
Bye-bye, love.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to get. Yeah, I've got to go. See you guys.
You
see you,
too.
Dale.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you all. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I was reading an article today about some Chinese doctor in late 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s, that when they first introduced the steam engine to China, and there was a lot of criticism about Chinese medicine there because of its poor anatomical skills. And this guy took the analogy of how the steam engine worked and put that into the physical body, basically, and was explaining how the bladder is the recipient of the yang energy, how it comes through the breath and also through the food and liquid that actually comes into the intestines or into the stomach, gets absorbed out of the stomach into the system, and then connects to the kidneys and then into the bladder. And it's the bladder that provides the transformative process of vaporizing liquid. The heavy part of liquid comes out as urine, but the lighter aspects are sent back up through the tissues. Why was I saying that? I forget why I was saying that. No, lost that thread. But if we look in another way at this one up here, the spleen with the 6 yang lines, the spleen in the Chinese system is the organ that governs. Is it remonstration? Is that a word? It's basically like the moral judge, you could say. And judgment is a quality that I would put to metal. And so each of the different organs holds a different office of control, and the spleen in particular is the one that uses virtue, assimilation, to decide what is a virtuous act and what is not. And to me, that's also a fire quality. And the whole fluid metabolism is dependent on the warm aspect of kidney water, but in particular that moves through to the what's called the yang of the spleen. So without any spleen yang, there's no fluid transformation, there's no food transformation, there's no distribution of nutrients into the muscles or any of the systems. So that's another possible connection why I might put spleen to Qian. What do you think, Keith?
I'm just trying to hold on at the moment. Yeah, there's a couple of things kind of clicking with me, but I can't quite get a question out of it just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the moment I'm trying to look around at tidal hexagrams and how they're used. You said they were linked with the stems and branches as well. There they are.
Yeah, I'm just going to see if I can find one of Johan's slides.
One of the things I did do was pull out if you use the tidal hexagrams in a prescription for the 4 magical.
Yeah.
You you just get the fifth point. That's it.
How do you mean just the fifth point?
So if you compare them horizontally and diagonally, you get large intestine 5, pericardium 5, kidney 7, and stomach 41. And that's actually a prescription I'll be using today.
So you've lost me there a bit. So you've got large intestine 5.
Large intestine 5, pericardium 5, pericardium 5, stomach 41, kidney 7.
So how are you getting that?
So you compare the hexagrams horizontally and diagonally.
Because if I put the pericardium next to here, that would be pericardium 7 I would need to include as well. Oh, no, actually, I'm still not quite sure what you mean, Keith.
No, hold on. No, come back to me.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to see if we can find this diagram in a square pattern.
I'm just trying to see if this fits into something that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still delving in. Continue on.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to answer Harmon's question. And
I forgot what question that was, Paul. So don't be bothered by it.
Well, it's a good question. It was why is Chien metal in fire on that diagram, and why is Kun Earth
Yeah,
down
well,
in
I don't
water?
think that's really an important. I don't think that's an important question, because I think you already showed the connection, but
Yeah.
it's connection that you make through the way you practice Chinese medicine,
Yeah,
and from that direction it makes sense.
yeah,
For someone who doesn't practice that, like me,
yeah,
it doesn't make sense whatsoever. But that's not important. From your perspective, there is a clear connection.
yeah.
Well, there you have it.
So if we came back to the quality of now I'm getting lost. So how would you describe then the quality of Chien?
As a hexagram, you mean?
Yeah.
So
Or
it's just
or a trigram? Or
a trigram, yeah, that doesn't really matter which direction you're going to take it, both the same.
yeah,
Well, Chen is about, to me, it's everything that is related to concepts of heaven. And I think we all have certain ideas with this association of heaven. The minute you think about heaven, I think here in the West, we immediately get these religious kind of ideas,
yeah,
which I think connects really well with this hexagram and with trigram heaven, because all these associations like gods and divinities and everything that is invisible, everything that's religious, everything that is spiritual is, from the Chinese perspective, as far as I know, also connected to this hexagram and to trigram Chen. So, but to me, it's mainly a hexagram of concepts and ideas. The problem with trigram Chen and with hexagram 1 is that it isn't able to realize anything, because it needs yin for that. It's a hexagram and a trigram about thoughts and ideas and concepts, but it is not able to realize these ideas. So that is why this hexagram will always need another party that has yin to be able to do something.
yeah.
So because otherwise you're stuck in ideas and nothing is really happening. And ideas are fine, but in the end they need to be realized. And that's, by the way, something that is also, I think, the difference between Chinese philosophy and Western philosophy, as far as I know. Western philosophy, when I see certain discussions about Western philosophy, I often think, well, that's a very interesting thought exercise. And after the discussion, everybody is going their way, and that's it. However, in Chinese philosophy, what you're going to talk about has to be practical. You have to be able to do it. And when you're not able to do it, then it's considered worthless. So, whereas in Western philosophy, I often think, well, you can have great discussions, but nothing is really happening. Yeah. And Chinese philosophy has to be practical. But the problem with Trigram Heaven and with Hexagram 1 is that it isn't really practical. There isn't really any result. Whereas the opposite hexagram 2, is about result. It's about these concrete things, everything that can be touched, everything that you can see, and that's actually a hexagram 2 or trigram Earth. Yeah. So, and that is what a hexagram 1 means to me. It's a great hexagram for thoughts and ideas and concepts, and also about focus, choosing a certain direction. But it doesn't automatically mean that you will end up somewhere. It's just a point on the horizon that you're choosing, and you're going in that direction. But whether you're going to end up there, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, okay. So that to me comes back to the idea of using the opposites. So in Jan's one up here where we got the spleen and the heart in fire, then its opposite is the Kun Earth, the Kun responding hexagram and the return hexagram. So they both are connected to these two in the opposites. So I wonder if that implies that because it's a circular action and there is movement there. But also the spleen and stomach in the Chinese medical system is related to contemplation and thought. Okay. The spirit aspect of the earth is related to thinking. Okay. So there's another possible connection there.
Interesting.
Yeah. And one of the other things, if I can go into a little bit more, where was that? Which I found quite interesting today, looking at these ones. Bearing in mind, I have watched your video about mutual. I'm not sure if you call them mutual hexagrams, but it's my understanding from what you said that they're not using the ancient text. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea of combining the nuclear trigram to a new hexagram, that's actually quite, in the history of the I Ching, it's a late development.
Later development.
And I don't mean, and many people often think that when I say that I'm implying that it is wrong. No, that's not what I'm implying.
Sure.
I'm only saying that from the historical perspective, nuclear hexagrams were not relevant. They did not combine these nuclear trigrams to a new hexagram. And sometimes I have the impression that here in the West, we really run away with this idea of nuclear hexagrams, and we're doing all kinds of stuff with it, which is fine. But from my very extremely personal perspective, when it is, when they didn't do it in China, or they did only do it relatively late in the history of the I Ching, then I'm personally not interested in it.
Yeah, okay.
Then, because I mainly work in the period of, well, at least before the Han Dynasty. And that's the period that I'm interested in. In that period, they didn't combine nuclear trigrams to nuclear hexagrams. They didn't even do it in the Han Dynasty. They didn't do it in the Tang Dynasty. As far as I can see, they started doing that from a philosophical point of view somewhere, I think, from the Ming Dynasty, around 1300, I think.
Okay.
my memory serves me right. So it's a relatively late development. And we had here in the Netherlands, we had this I Ching expert, Han Boering, and he made this wonderful mandala of hexagrams and focusing on nuclear hexagrams. And actually what you're showing here now, he turned it into a circular form.
Yeah, okay.
It looks great. And he built a wonderful theory around that idea. And I think he called them karmic hexagrams, something like that. And that is how we use nuclear hexagrams here in the West. But it's actually, nuclear hexagrams were a non-issue in the history of the I Ching in China.
Okay.
Not that that's important, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I find the symmetry I find fascinating. That,
yeah.
You know, you've got opposites showing up. The one that's particularly interesting me at the moment is this, the mutual one of the hexagram Earth over Heaven is Marian Maiden, you know, according to the book. It's got here, nothing is favourable and beneficial. Whereas with this one, everything's favourable and, well, prosperous and smooth, that I could find was the quality of that. And if we just also look at that in regard to, we got the four qualities, Yuan, Hong, Li, Jun, which have different characteristics there, but they also fit on the circular pattern, in that Yuan is the east, Hong is the south or north, wherever the warm area is in your hemisphere. The west is Li, and the colder aspect is Jun. So they've also got association of movement, you could say, to those qualities during the day or the year. So when it came to this one, which, and you know, it's baffling to know why a hexagram is so called good and why it's not good. And from what I can understand, it's because this yin line here is hemmed in by three yang lines. So you can say that the female's being ganged up by three males, and there's no movement. Or possibly it's the first and the fourth line both being yang. There is some level of obstacle as well there, I guess.
Yes, well, I think we're running into a slight translation problem here, Paul.
Okay.
And also this idea of hexagrams being bad and hexagrams being good.
Yep.
There are no bad hexagrams and there are no good hexagrams as far as I'm concerned.
Good. It's good to hear.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
And many people, when they read the judgment text in that translation, they see the judgment text of hexagram 54 and they think, oh my God, this is a terrible hexagram. But when I look at it at the Chinese original text, I think, well, nothing really bad about it. When I look at the text from a strictly divinatory perspective, I'm a diviner, I cast a hexagram and I get this original Chinese text. What I see here in the Chinese text is that it says that having an expedition is ominous, is inauspicious. I should not have an expedition. And not going anywhere, not having a long journey, that is auspicious.
Yeah.
That so all it is saying is that, well, you know, you have to stay inside. Don't go anywhere. If you stay inside, everything is fine. So don't take these long journeys. Don't go to the borders to execute some bandit leaders, whatever. Don't do that. Just stay in your own place. Then everything will be fine. So why do you consider it a bad hexagram, Paul?
Well, because of what I've read. Well, I first of all, I would say I totally agree with you about. I don't think there's anything good or bad about the trigrams or the hexagrams. They just
No, they are just what they are.
they are what they are. Yes, I agree with that. And but reading the text, it says nothing is favourable and beneficial. So
it can't be a fixed thing, can it? It has to represent potential rather than a fixed point of view.
Yeah, well, it's when you're trying to understand things and then you're reading from so-called experts, you could say.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to. Well, I'm trying to think. Well, okay, well, if that's that, why is it like that? And I like the thunder. I like all the trigrams, but I like thunder and lake. I think they're a nice combination. And but I guess what was puzzling me, because the hexagram Earth over heaven is, you know, debatedly one of the most balanced hexagrams in the whole book. Why this Marian Maiden was the nuclear trigram of that. And basically, if you're not sure, Mark, the nuclear trigram is built from the 4 lines in the middle of the hexagram.
Mm-hmm.
So the 2nd, 3rd and 4th line create the lower trigram, and the 3rd, 4th and 5th create the upper trigram.
Okay. And
then what's called the Corgua is basically again made from the 4 lines of the nuclear trigram or the neutral. So that, yeah, I was thinking, well, why is that why is it related to this one? But then I guess you could look at the fact that also you could explore perhaps the 3rd and the 4th lines as moving in this hexagram.
Well, you know, there isn't really, from a trigram perspective, there isn't really that much difference between hexagram 11 and hexagram 54. In hexagram 11, you have the opposites of husband and wife, or father and mother, heaven and earth. Whereas in hexagram 54, you have the youngest daughter and the eldest son. So there's also an extreme opposite there.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, not hexagram 54 is not really that much different from hexagram 11. However, from hexagram 11, we have the parents.
Yeah.
And maybe hexagram 54 are their children who are going to get married.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, okay.
So, and that's not really so strange. The funny thing, however, is what is so special about hexagram 54, and why is it a hexagram in the I Ching, and why is it called marrying maiden? What is so special about this marriage? Well, from a trigram perspective, it's an exceptional marriage because a very young girl is marrying a more or less quite older male person.
Yeah.
And many people often think with this hexagram about concubines, etc., and about these huge fat emperors taking cartloads of young virgin girls. Yeah. But the practice of concubines is also relatively late practice. And in ancient China, you were supposed to marry someone from your own age, preferably, and somewhat in the same age category. And that is not what is going on in this hexagram from a trigram perspective.
Yeah, sure.
So, but there is a reason, of course, why this is happening. So, but going back to the hexagram, and I don't see that much difference between 11 and 54 because they seem to show a similar kind of opposites.
It works.
Mm. So could we look at that then as an overextension? So when you got this moving, I mean, I know this is made up from the 4 lines, but I'm looking at it now and I'm seeing that these two two lines are the only difference here. So this is the inner trigram, or I guess the third line is the result of whatever the first line indicates, the extension of the movement or the action, which is then reverting to a yin quality. And then we got the bottom line, or the origin, you could say, of the outer trigram, reverted or changing to a yang line.
Well, what you actually have here is that the third line and the fourth line are moving.
Moving, yeah.
And from the Sansai perspective, that these two lines belong to the realm of men. The first two lines belong to the realm of earth.
Yeah.
And the fifth and sixth line belong to the realm of heaven, whereas the third and fourth line belong to the realm of the Sansai of men, of people, which shows that what is going on here is a relationship thing.
Yeah, that's what
it's about relationships between people.
Yeah.
And because these two lines, if you look at it that way, because now these two lines are moving, which emphasizes this realm of men.
So if, for example, you had a dominant male aspect in a relationship and a passive female, then this could actually show a harmonizing of that.
Yeah. Exactly.
More gentleness from the male and more action and assertiveness from the female.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I have one of those relationships.
Oh. I wish you good luck.
It works very well.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never looked at it like that before. So, yeah, okay. So I guess what you said at the beginning, then, it's about not getting too hung up on the text, but actually coming to understand the qualities of the trigrams and how they interact together.
Yes, I think you can use that to add some nuance to the text.
Yeah.
To make the text sound as not as harsh as it often sounds in translations.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what next?
So those lines, if you go across from like tidal, mutual to core across, if you look at the lines 3 and 4, they're opposite each time you go through them. They are opposite, but the bottom 6, they're the same, except in a different way. Is that normal?
Well, that's an interesting observation. Except this one's changing, isn't it? Here, the second line is changing between those, and the fifth line.
It was the first one, not that one. The other's on the opposite side. That one, it's the same as that one, but the one in the middle is opposite. That's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you could say that this one's the second and the fifth have changed, haven't they? Have moved.
In my world, which is definitely not your world, one of the principles of healing is what we call the union of the opposites. So it's taking the opposites and trying to put them together into a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's sort of probably understood in terms of what I understand as androgyny, which is not like a sexual thing. It's not like bisexuality or hermaphroditism or anything like that. It is just the kind of psychological combination of masculine and feminine in the same body, and how that manifests in that individual sort of thing, and that often that they're in opposition to each other.
Yeah, well, that's yin yang, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
So that's the fundamental basis of our medicine, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think of this this yin line, if we looked at back at what was that one? Back here, so if that yin line was to come into the process here, for example, there would be some restriction to the growing, the growth of the plant, or the growth of the action, or the growth of the relationship. Yeah, it would get restricted, impeded, because this the Jun Thunder is about dynamic action. Well, for me, it's about dynamic action and movement that is sudden, but has lots of force behind it. And it's built on the basis of 3 yang lines underneath. So that's the inner trigram here, I would say, is related to intention. So if the intention is pure, you could say, then the growth and expansion is also going to be pure. If the intention, or whatever the intention is, this is going to manifest some sort of action dynamically from it. And in some ways, this ascending line is pushing the dross out, pushing the shit out.
Which is what we do naturally at that time.
Yeah. And if we just come back to the heart, the heart's is considered the emperor in the Chinese system, and it's relatively passive, even though it's constantly beating all the time. It's in some ways desireless, and desire might be a manifestation more of the water element. So the physical component of the kidney, or the psychological component of desire, has a direct interrelation with the heart.
What is the relationship between the heart and the spleen?
What is the relationship, did you say? Well, there's one direct relationship, which is called the generative cycle. If we were to look at, if we looked at the 5 elements in a circular fashion, so if we started with fire at the top, then the preceding one to fire is earth. Oh no, sorry, no, it's not. I've only been doing this 30 years. That's terrible. That's not terrible. It's just too many thoughts in my head. So we've got wood, water, metal, and earth. And then, so if I just do the abbreviation, so heart's up, or actually probably should do it. The heart, you could say, is here, then spleen, then lung, then kidney, and then liver. So this is called the generative cycle. So each element generates the next. So, so the heart has a direct generative action on the spleen. Well, it's like, I guess you could say, if you set fire to wood, what's left is ash, and that's earth. So you could just look at it in that sequence. So fire burns wood, and then it turns into ash, which becomes the earth. If you look at the very thin human body, then we could say that this section here is governed by the spleen, and it's said that as the food enters the stomach, the spleen acts on, well, this is my interpretation, the spleen acts on the food and the purest part of the food is sent to the heart. So this is, in the traditions, you could say this is your sacrificial offerings that are produced from when we take anything, it's first given to the heart. Or in a lot of cultures and traditions, they actually, before they even eat food, it's the first food is offered to the deity before it actually comes into the physical body. So there's the relationship in that way. The spleen governs the muscular system, which is also the system of the blood circuit. The veins and the arteries basically are muscular. Okay. So the strength of the spleen allows the blood to circulate efficiently through the blood circulation. And the spleen, in another way, is connected to too much thick liquid. So it likes dampness because that's how it breaks food down and that. But if it's too much of it, then too much stress and worry, for example, might start to create a narrowing of the blood vessels. Yeah. So that can also restrict the circulation of the heart, or make the heart work harder, you could say. So that there's quite a few close connections with the heart and the spleen. Would you add anything else to that, Keith?
I'm just kind of scrolling through a couple of things because heart and spleen, I don't know, it's been coming up for me a good bit recently. With COVID, it seems to pop up a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to put together, why or how to actually use that practically.
How to use what practically?
That interrelationship between heart and spleen. It's in the global balances. I use it mainly for hormonal stuff. Heart, spleen, Xiaoyang.
Yeah, well, if you look at this system here, maybe a better one here, spleen, heart, gallbladder, Sanjiao. Is this direct connection fire water, which is this heart connects to gallbladder, spleen connects to triple warmer. So that global balance is a pattern in this system as well.
Yeah. We also see it in people with long COVID as well, like the thought process, the digestive processes, the fatigue. All of these seem to work. Heart and spleen seem to be coming in.
Yeah, well, I was watching a video yesterday about COVID again, and some of the Chinese medical teams that went to different hospitals in China, and that they were finding that the COVID actually bypasses the upper respiratory tract and goes straight to the lower respiratory aspect and the digestion. And its origin is a damp cold pathogen.
Yeah.
So I guess that's connection to spleen again. But it's, when you look at how do you work with spleen and heart, it's again, is the spleen cold? Is it hot? Is it deficient? Is it excess? Again, they're all relevant to how you would adopt a treatment strategy, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, Mark's gone. I need to read the chat.
I just found an article on the spleen and myocardial infarction.
From a Chinese perspective or a Western medical?
I think it's Western, yeah. Huh. It's going to take me a while to get through this one.
Well, if it's interesting, send me a link.
Yeah.
So, anything else we want to do? Anything you want to add, Harman?
No, not really, because I constantly get confused when we're talking about medical stuff.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
But like, yeah, your insight into the trigrams is great. It's I really like the way the hexagram is split between heaven, human, and earth. I'm going to be looking at that in the next 2 weeks anyway.
Oh,
Just,
okay.
I think that's what I'm taking away from today anyway. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. And I often get the question, how do you use that in practical I Ching divination? And I mainly use that in the way that we did now, when a complete sansai is moving. For instance, if I have the top line of a hexagram moving, then that belongs to the realm of heaven. But that doesn't really do anything for me. But when I have the 5th line and the 6th line moving, then that complete section of heaven is moving. Then I think, well, now it's getting interesting.
It's getting close, yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I use that. And that also makes it a little bit easier for me to apply it when I have multiple moving lines in my hexagram. For instance, many people who want to work with this concept of the sansai, when they have, for instance, the 2nd line moving and the 5th line moving, they say, okay, well, the 2nd line is in the realm of earth and the 5th line is in the realm of heaven. Well, what can I do with that? Then I decided for myself, well, in these cases, I'm not going to do anything with it. So choice is being made. There we go. And but when the complete sansai is moving, for instance, when I have the 1st line and the 2nd line moving, then I think, well, now it's getting interesting.
Yeah.
So, and that helps me to decide when I should apply that concept and when I can just put it aside. So I think I Ching works with the choices that you make. So.
Okay. Could you give it? I'm a little bit confused with that. Can you give an example somehow?
An example of what, Paul?
Well, you said that, say, if the 2nd line, or if it was just the 2nd or the 5th line moving, or the just the top line moving, that might not be of great relevance to you, or to make you make an action. But if both the 5th and the 6th are moving,
yeah, then you have the complete part of heaven in your hexagram is moving, and then I think, well, then it's getting interesting. But when I have the 2nd line moving and the 6th line, whatever, then I have 2 moving lines in 2 different sansai segments, and that for some reason I can't really do anything with that. It gets even more complex when I have the 1st line moving and I have the 3rd line moving and I have the 5th line moving. Then I have a moving line in each of these segments, and it can, I'm a simple person. I can't do something with that. So I decided for myself, I'm only going to use the sansai when I have complete segment moving.
Okay.
So, and it's my personal opinion or belief, if you want, that when you make such a choice, that the I Ching adapts to that. You create the framework within which the I Ching is going to answer.
Yeah. Okay.
It's using your associations of the trigrams, not the associations from some fake book that is lying around somewhere. It's using your personal associations of the trigrams. And I always give as an example, for instance, if a mountaineer gets hexagram 52, which is twice trigram mountain, then if, for instance, he's asking the I Ching, should I climb the Mount Everest? And he's getting hexagram 52, and it's twice trigram mountain, then he would say, this is amazing. I mean, because trigram mountain has completely different meaning than for someone who is working at an office. When someone who's working at an office and asking, what should I do today? And he's getting hexagram 52, then he will think, oh, more piles of work. So these personal associations are, I think, what the I Ching will refer to. So, and that's also with these choices that you make. I decided for myself that I'm only going to use the Sansai when I have a complete Sansai moving. That's my personal choice. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying that it's wrong either. But it's my personal choice to work with the Sansai, and it makes working with the Sansai much easier.
So you call it, how do you spell that? Sansai? I've not heard of that.
Oh, hi, Yvonne. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I heard. You mean just in our Western alphabet?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that phrase. So,
Oh, okay. Well, let me see. It's just S-A-N, San, Sai, C-A-I, Sansai.
okay. So sun is 3. So that's
Yes,
the 3.
exactly. That's the 3. Sansai. Sai is little bit difficult to translate because it's actually refers to a lot of things, but it's often it's a concept which is, especially in Taoism, quite important as far as I know, and it mainly used with this idea of these 3 realms of earth, man, and heaven. So, but Tsai, when you look at the meaning of Tsai, it mainly means certain quality, certain. Oh, can't find the English word. What is it? A certain quality, a talent. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. It's mainly a talent, and but that is a little bit difficult to reconcile with the overall concept of the Sansai. So that's why I often translate it or interpret it as 3 realms. But when you say Sansai to a person who is familiar with Chinese philosophy, or it's also used, I think, in Chinese medicine in certain directions, they immediately will know what I'm referring to when I talk about the Sansai.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
yeah.
oh, hi, Yvonne. Yes, nice to see you here. That's an unexpected surprise.
Hello, Harvey.
Hi, Yvonne. Did you just also sign up for this? I'm sorry, this is something completely different, Paul. Yvonne, did you sign up for this meeting from Shantena Sabadini?
Sorry, from when?
Well, I just about, I think 15 minutes ago, I signed up for an online meeting from Shantena Sabadini on March of 27th.
Yes.
You also signed up?
Yes.
I thought so, because I got a reply from this center, from the Paris Center, that started with, "Dear Yvonne." And now you're here, so I thought there must be a connection.
Yes, it is.
Okay, you're the same Yvonne. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Do you know each other? Do you know each other as well, apart from that strange occurrence?
Yes. Well, we do know each other.
Yeah. Okay.
From the courses, I think, and from Facebook.
Yeah. Cool. Hi, Yvonne.
Hello.
Yeah. Cool. Just on a note you said before, do you think it might be useful if we divided the time? Maybe just there's no medical stuff in the first hour or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, but for me, that would be very useful.
Yeah.
Because I'm not familiar with all these organ systems. I don't know these abbreviations that you're using. So I'm constantly confused what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I know it's related to Chinese medicine, which makes sense from your perspective. But for me, who is approaching the trigrams and everything else, mainly from an I Ching perspective and nothing else, and then even from an historical perspective, that is sometimes confusing.
Yeah.
So, but that might be a good idea to have a more general hour.
Yeah.
And well, another hour which can have a specific focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Yvonne? Was that a tricky question? No pressure.
And maybe Yvonne is forgetting to turn on the mic. That often happens in Zoom meetings.
Are you there, Yvonne? Maybe not. Okay. Well, I'm about done. Is there anything else that we want to discuss?
Sorry, I was a few minutes. I left the place.
Okay. I just wondered, yeah, if you just, I'm not sure, I don't know you, so I'm just wondering if you could tell me a bit about who you are and what you're here for and anything else.
Okay, I am a TCM practitioner, and I'm a student of Harman Mesker. And I'm just always curious to learn more about the I Ching, the balance method and everything. So I was joining you, or I saw some articles or this kind of group when you started it, and I'm just always curious to learn more about the I Ching, about acupuncture and everything. So I'm just I'm at the very beginning of I Ching and acupuncture, but yeah,
me too.
trying to learn more about it.
Yeah, cool. Sounds like you're at the right place then.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we've been going for an hour and 40 minutes, so I'm not sure if you're whatever time zone you're in. So whereabouts are you? Are you, yeah, where do you live?
I'm from Austria, so a little bit far away, but yeah, the time right now is 10:38 in the morning.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah,
so are you,
just, I'm just happy to be here in this group and that you share that much knowledge of your experience or of the others. I'm really happy to have this group here.
Yeah, cool. Me too. Me too. But I was just saying, I'm just about done today.
Yeah, Paul, maybe a practical tip, because as you know by now that you live in a really weird time zone, Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, we're constantly struggling with finding the appropriate starting time of the meeting. So maybe you could also mention the, Keith, stop laughing. I mean, it's really a problem. It's as if you're in some kind of limbo with your time zone.
For me.
So maybe if you could also mention the GMT time or this another time zone just for reference, because the time zone that you mentioned in your former meeting announcement didn't really exactly correspond with the time zone that you are living in.
Yeah.
So, and now because you added, for this meeting, you added the place, that helped me to find the actual time that you meant, because the time zone that you are in now is some strange of small segment, I think, of a time zone. Really, really weird. So
I've messed it up a few times myself.
Yeah. So maybe you can also add another time zone, just to make sure that everybody can join at the right time.
I'll do my best with that. I'm a little bit techno. I'm learning bit by bit, but there's some things that are quite challenging.
Well, you have the website timeanddate.com, and that will always tell you what time zone you're in and what time zones the the time is in other places. So
Yeah,
I always use that as a reference.
yeah, I use Time Converter. That's quite a good site.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, okay. I'll see if I can make that easier to get it clear about when we're actually starting.
Yeah, and that might also make it more people might be inclined to join
Yeah. Yeah.
when they really know the right time.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. Anything else then?
Well, it's good to see you all again.
It's good to see you, Keith. Oh, just back to, is that a new couch?
No, couch is the same, but the wiring got done. I decided my own style of electrics wasn't the best, so I got to go in to tidy it up a bit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it looks different, your space. Maybe it's just
I
the
changed the
lighting.
blinds as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've been shut down since Christmas, so
Yeah.
we're still dealing with this.
Yeah. Huge,
Well,
isn't it?
I'm back open in a week's time, so
Yeah, right.
yeah, doing a lot of homeschooling.
Yeah, how's that going?
Yeah, it's great. Everyone in the house all the time. Way.
It's a crash course in close relationships, isn't it?
Yes. How to hide in a small house.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any questions, Yvonne?
Me?
Yvonne.
Oh, Yvonne, sorry.
Maybe she's just slipped out again. All right. So should we conclude? Happy to do that?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Yes,
Nice
thank
meeting
you. See you next time.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye everyone.
Bye, guys.
Oops.